Hello and welcome back to another episode of Hearts Flying from Hearts Distractions. If you're tuning in for the first time, I'm so glad you're here. I'm your host, Alicia Minor Gaines, and today's episode is Chef's Kiss. It's all about the secret to real love, understanding your partner's emotional needs. This is all about something that every couple, no matter how long you've been together, needs to understand to truly thrive in your relationship. Whether you just started swiping or you've been married for decades, I promise this episode is going to hit different. Now, let's start by addressing a question we all have at some point. What does it mean to truly understand someone's emotional needs? Emotional needs go beyond the surface of a relationship. They're about creating a space where both partners feel safe, valued, and connected. Whether it's needing more affection, trust, or simply acknowledgement, these are the building blocks of love. Let's take a moment to reflect on a powerful quote. Love is the meeting of two souls, fully accepting the dark and the light within each other. Think about that for a second. How often do we allow our partners to see both our strengths and vulnerabilities? And do we embrace theirs in return? That's the foundation of meeting emotional needs. Yes, acceptance is the key word here. In this episode, we'll be diving into why understanding your partner's emotional needs is the cornerstone of lasting love. It's not just about fancy gestures. It's about truly connecting on a deeper level, knowing what your partner needs emotionally and how to show up for them in the right ways. We'll also explore how cultural, generational, and personal experiences shape these needs, and how you can work together to meet them without losing yourself in the process. We'll hear stories from real couples, insights from leading relationship experts, and even tackle some controversial questions like, should emotional needs always come first? Or can focusing too much on them become transactional? Before we jump in, here's the deal. If you enjoy real, raw, and often controversial conversations about relationships, make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, Hearts Wine from Hearts Distractions, especially for any exclusive content that we release. Also, head on over to aliciasdistractions.com for more resources and follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook through Alicia's Distractions. And let's get into it. Once you pour your wine, tea, soft drink, or favorite mixed drink, because it's about to get real. To start, let's define emotional needs and why they're so important in relationships. These are the invisible threads that hold relationships together. Think of them as the heat of your relationship. If this is not working, everything starts feeling cold. Ooh, it just got chilly in here. Psychologists often reference Maslow's hierarchy of needs to explain our craving for connection, validation, and security. Emotional needs are those feelings or conditions that make us feel happy, secure, and validated. Emotional needs are the deep, fundamental feelings we all have surrounding needs for validation, safety, trust, affection, and appreciation. These needs shape how we feel loved, supported, and seen in a relationship. And when they're not met, baby, the drama writes itself. Because now your partner is feeling disconnected, frustrated, hurt, dissatisfied, and even unsafe in the relationship. For example, consider the need for validation. When someone feels truly seen, heard, and understood, it creates a deep bond. This is one of the most universal emotional needs. On the other hand, when that need goes unmet, it can lead to feelings of insecurity and distance. Similarly, trust is the foundation of every relationship. Without it, it's hard for a relationship to survive. Don't you want your relationship to survive? I'm sure we've all had moments where we felt like something's off, but we couldn't pinpoint it. Imagine a couple, let's call them Jake and Mia. They've been dating for a few months, but Mia is starting to feel like Jake doesn't understand her emotional needs. She craves affection and validation, but Jake, who tends to be more emotionally reserved, doesn't know how to give that. Over time, this causes friction, leaving Mia feeling unsupported. Another couple, let's call them Mia and Sean. Mia felt invisible because Sean didn't acknowledge her efforts around the house or in their social life. Meanwhile, Sean didn't realize that his silence was sending the message that her contributions didn't matter. Once they identified this need for validation, they started small. A simple thank you or I appreciate you made a huge difference in their relationship. These are real life situations, a few that many couples face when emotional needs aren't communicated or understood. That's why today we'll dive deeper into the psychology behind these needs. I wouldn't be a marriage and family therapist if I didn't dive into some psychology on y'all. Now, here's a question for you listeners. How often do you express gratitude to your partner? I want y'all to drop y'all answers in the comments or share them on our social media pages. Sometimes the simplest gestures can meet the biggest emotional needs. I want to share with y'all a quote that I repeat often to myself ever since I got married. Love is the meeting of two souls, fully accepting the dark and the light within each other. I wish I knew who wrote that, but it's listed as unknown, so I guess we'll never know. But let's follow that, shall we? And let's keep this quote in mind as we move forward, because love isn't about perfect compatibility. It's about understanding and embracing each other's emotional landscapes. And spoiler alert, it's not about what you think is enough. It's about what they need. They, meaning your partner. So let's talk about the psychology behind emotional needs and how meeting these needs can feel like climbing Mount Everest. Here's the tea. Meeting emotional needs is hard because we all come with baggage. Cultural expectations, generational patterns, all of it. Cultural and generational narratives complicate things, meaning they give messages like, real men don't cry. Love means sacrifice. These beliefs can make it hard for couples to communicate honestly. And a lot of these tend to fall on men and causing them to struggle with showing up. Like growing up, I was taught to be strong and independent. Translation, never ask for help because that's weakness. Well, as a woman who had to survive on her own, weakness could not be in my vocabulary. But I've learned to kind of lean a different way and show my emotional vulnerability and allowing others to be there if I need them. But we all know that this is not how love works, right? Love is about connection, not perfection. Ooh, I like that. Love is about connection, not perfection. According to the Gottman Institute, couples who understand each other's emotional needs are 80% more likely to be satisfied in their relationships. But here's the kicker though. It's not your partner's job to fix you. Controversial, right? Oh, but I know that just hit someone like a reality check. But it's true. Here's the kicker though. It's not your partner's job to fix you. Controversial, right? Oh, I know. That just definitely hit someone like a reality check. But it's true. You've got to know yourself before you can expect someone else to show up for you. Let's pause for a second. Think about it. Are you clear on what you need emotionally? If not, how's your partner supposed to figure it out? Guess you might want to think on that one. Research in marriage and family therapy has shown that emotional connection is not just a nice to have, it's a must have. When partners can meet each other's emotional needs, the relationship becomes much stronger. This is where things get fascinating and honestly, a bit challenging. if we're going to be honest. Emotional needs often trace back to our childhood experiences and attachment styles. You've probably heard of attachment theory, right? If not, no worries. I'll give you an overview before the full episode on attachment styles and love comes out. This framework we'll talk about is called attachment theory, which identifies 4 main attachment styles, which are secure, anxious, avoidant, and disorganized. These styles can deeply influence how we relate to others in romantic relationships. These styles are shaped by how our caregivers responded to our needs when we were young. If you had caregivers who were constantly there for you, you're likely to develop a secure attachment. But if there were inconsistencies or trauma, you might lean toward anxious, avoidant, or disorganized tendencies. A person with a secure attachment style tends to feel comfortable with intimacy and independence. But those with an anxious attachment style might struggle with insecurity and need constant reassurance. Someone with an avoidant attachment style may withdraw or feel uncomfortable with closeness. And finally, a disorganized attachment style often results from trauma, making it difficult to trust or stay emotionally consistent. Here's a quick example. Let's say we have Melissa. Growing up, her parents were emotionally distant, and now as an adult, she struggles to ask for reassurance in her relationship because she feels like it makes her seem needy. Her partner, Sam, on the other hand, grew up in a very affectionate household and doesn't understand why Melissa hesitates to express her need. This mismatch in attachment styles created tension until they started working together to unpack their past and communicate better. According to the Journal of Marriage and Family, couples who actively work to meet each other's emotional needs are 50% more likely to report long-term satisfaction. Now, isn't that amazing? The same journal also showed that 65% of relationship conflicts stem from unspoken or unmet emotional needs. This just goes to show how vital it is to address these deeper psychological factors. Here's an example of how emotional needs are influenced by both cultural and generational patterns. Imagine a couple where one partner was raised in a family where emotional expression was seen as weak. This partner may find it hard to express affection, and their emotional needs go unmet. It's not just about personality. It's deeply ingrained in their upbringing. So yes, your history, your childhood history, plays a major factor here. So ask yourself, what's your attachment style? And how does it influence your relationships? If you're not sure, I encourage you to explore it with your partner. It can be a real game changer. Now let's talk about something that's just as important. How to meet your partner's needs without losing yourself in the process. Yes, this is a big one. This is one of the biggest struggles in relationships. How do you support your partner, but also maintain your own sense of self? It's all about striking a balance. This is such a tricky area for many couples. It's easy to fall into the trap of people-pleasing or even codependency when we're trying to support one another, when we're trying to support someone else. Let me share a personal story from a blend of couples that I have seen in my practice. Let's say we have James. He and his husband Victor had a tough time when they first moved in together. James would overextend himself to meet Victor's needs. Cooking, cleaning, planning dates, all while ignoring his own exhaustion. Eventually, it led to burnout and resentment. What changed? James learned to set boundaries and communicate when he needed a break. And Victor learned to respect those boundaries. Now they work together to support each other without either person feeling like they're losing themselves. And know that this situation is universal and has been for many of my couples. whether straight or gay or in poly relationships. I've heard lots of my couples experience this exact same experience. Self-care and setting boundaries are absolutely essential in a healthy relationship. So imagine trying to meet every emotional need of your partner while neglecting your own. Over time, that imbalance leads to burnout and resentment. I remember a friend sharing with me their experience of struggling with codependency. They would always put their partner's emotional needs first, ignoring their own. They felt overwhelmed and lost in a relationship, not realizing that they were neglecting their own needs for connection and growth. So sad, right? And this leads me to a powerful quote from Dr. John Gottman. A healthy relationship is one where two people support each other's individuality, not erase it. Let that sink in for a moment. Supporting someone doesn't mean giving up your sense of self. It means finding ways to thrive together. To thrive together. I hope y'all heard that, because this quote perfectly sums it up. It's about balance. You should never feel like you have to become someone else to meet your partner's needs. If this resonates with you, think about ways you can protect your individuality while being part of a couple, being invested in your relationship. Maybe it's carving out time for hobbies or simply saying no when you need to. Imagine this. You're sitting at the dinner table and your partner says, "You never appreciate what I do." You're stunned because in your mind, every little act of love, like taking out the trash or cooking dinner, has been your way of showing that you care. This is where communication becomes the bridge. Communication is the bridge that connects emotional needs and fulfillment. This is where many relationships either thrive or falter. Without open and honest communication, it's nearly impossible to truly understand your partner's emotional landscape. Think about it. How can your partner meet your needs if you never tell them what they are? Misaligned interpretations can be solved by asking one simple question. What does appreciation look like to you? I'm going to say that one again for y'all. This can be solved by asking the simple question. What does appreciation look like to you? Let's use a couple for an example here. Let's call them Priya and Jacob. Priya values verbal affirmations, while Jacob expresses love through actions. Their disconnect led to frequent arguments until they had a heart-to-heart where Priya said, "I need to hear it sometimes, even if you think I already know." Jacob began offering affirmations, and Priya reciprocated by recognizing his acts of service. See how they work together on that one? Here's a good quote for y'all. Communication to a relationship is like oxygen to life. Without it, it dies. Thank you, Tony Gaskins, for that quote right there, because some couples needed to hear that. But let's be real. Communication isn't always easy. Sometimes we think we're expressing ourselves clearly, but our partners hear something completely different. For instance, when one partner says, "I need more affection," they may mean, "I need to feel seen and valued," while the other partner might hear it as a critique of their behavior. And we know what happens when your partner feels criticized. They get defensive. Can we try something different? Can we maybe do a little quick role play? All right, y'all ready? Imagine this. Partner A says, "I just feel like we're not as close as we used to be." Partner B responds, "What are you talking about? I spend time with you every day." So this is an example of a miscommunication about emotional needs. Usually when my couples show up into therapy expressing their needs this way, I like to engage them in an activity that we call the listener and the talker. Why? Because clearly, like in that particular role play, right? Which is what I had my couples do in session. They need to hear each other, but they can't hear each other. Both of them are talking. They can't hear each other if they're missing the point and what is being expressed. So yes, they need to take turns. They need to take turns. One needs to be the listener while the other's the talker, and then they switch, giving the other person the same opportunity. And hopefully through that, they can hear each other. But let's say they don't hear each other. Then I usually get them to kind of like paraphrase what they heard the other person say and check in with clarifying questions to clarify what they heard or to verify what they missed. So that way there can be an understanding. Clear? Okay. So I want to give you a simple framework for expressing your needs. It's called the I statement. This is also another one that I use with my couples to get them to express their needs. So for example, instead of saying, "You never spend time with me," you could possibly say, "I feel lonely when we don't spend time together, and I'd love to plan a date night." See how that shifts the tone? It's less accusatory and more about expressing how you feel. And here's a fun challenge for you. Tonight, sit down with your partner and take turns sharing one need you have and how they can help meet it. Be specific, but also open to feedback. Communication is a two-way street. Oh, and let's not forget cultural nuances and communication. In some cultures, emotional needs might be expressed indirectly, while in others, directness is valued. It's important to understand how your partner's background shapes their approach to expressing and meeting needs. The solution here? Practice expressing needs clearly without blame or judgment. Try something like, "I'm feeling a little disconnected and would love to spend more quality time together." This is much more likely to lead to a productive conversation. Trust me, even with the best intentions, meeting each other's emotional needs can be difficult. Let's talk about some of the common challenges that come up. Unrealistic expectations often play a major role. We may expect our partner to meet all of our emotional needs, but that's not realistic. No one person can be everything to you. Balancing personal growth with relationship responsibilities can also be tricky, especially when external stressors like work, finances, or even family pressures come into play. Let's take a couple for example. Let's call them Chris and Julia. They're both feeling burnt out. Chris is dealing with stress at work, while Julia has family obligations. They're both emotionally unavailable, but they're not communicating this. They start to feel disconnected and frustrated with each other. This situation highlights the importance of emotional availability and how external factors can impact our relationships. Our emotional needs don't just come from our individual experiences. They're shaped by the generational patterns we inherit, how we were raised, the values we were taught, and the emotional habits we pick up from our families all play a huge role in how we express and receive love. For instance, if you grew up in a family where emotions were repressed, you might find it challenging to express your needs in a relationship. If you grew up in a family that avoided emotions, you might struggle to name or meet your own needs. Or maybe you learned that love equals sacrifice, making it hard to set boundaries. This is a common struggle, and it's something that many couples work hard to overcome. Let's consider another couple here. Let's name them Sarah and Mark. They both grew up in families where emotions weren't discussed openly. Now, as adults, they've inherited those communication habits. They struggle with expressing their needs and have trouble connecting on an emotional level. But they're determined to change the cycle and create a healthier dynamic. It takes a lot of awareness to do that. But generational differences also play a role. Baby boomers might see love as duty, while millennials prioritize emotional connection. Unpacking these patterns helps couples navigate misunderstandings and build healthier connections. So why not bring some awareness to not just your own patterns in your family or history, but also your partner's, to have a better understanding, to have some compassion and empathize and even validate with your partner's experience. Now that we've explored the challenges and complexities, let's dive into some practical strategies for understanding and meeting your partner's emotional needs. This is where the real work happens, because knowledge without action is just information, right? So let's get actionable. One of the first tools I always recommend is journaling. Whether it's daily or weekly, take time to reflect on your own needs and those of your partner. Journaling isn't just about documenting your thoughts. It's a way to process and gain clarity. Write down moments when you felt most connected to your partner and when you felt disconnected or distant. Ask yourself, what was missing in those moments? What's missing for you? Is it affection, validation, security? Be honest with yourself. This can only help pinpoint unmet emotional needs. Another tool is therapy. I know. Not everyone loves the idea of going to therapy, but relationship counseling is one of the most effective ways to get to the root of emotional needs. Therapists use tools like Gottman's love maps and emotionally focused therapy to help couples understand each other's emotional worlds. Couples who go to therapy are 60% more likely to improve their emotional connection and long-term satisfaction. That's pretty incredible, right? And as a marriage and family therapist, I'm here to tell you that yes, that percentage is correct, because I can even say in my practice that at least 60 to 70% of my couples come out of therapy more satisfied, more connected, and loving on each other more before they entered therapy. Another favorite of mine is communicate. Communicate. And I'm going to say it again. Communicate. Ask your partner clarifying questions. Instead of assuming I love you is enough, ask, what does love look like to you? No guessing games, no assumptions. Engage in self-reflection and identify which emotional needs might be unmet in your relationship. Another great strategy is regular relationship check-ins. Schedule a time, maybe once a week or once a month, where you both sit down and check in with each other. Ask things like, how are you feeling emotionally? And what do you need from me right now? This keeps the lines of communication open and allows for any issues to be addressed before they become bigger problems. Now, I want to take a moment to talk about empathy and active listening. If you didn't listen to the previous episode that I released on active listening, go back and listen. But empathy and active listening are two skills that can really transform the way you meet your partner's emotional needs. Empathy is the ability to understand and share another person's feelings, and it's essential in relationships. When your partner expresses a need, don't just listen to respond, listen to understand. Active listening involves making eye contact, asking clarifying questions, and showing that you care about your partner's emotions. This makes a huge difference in emotional connection, because it also shows that you understand your partner's emotions. I'm going to give y'all another quick story. Let's say Ryan and James had been together for 10 years, but they were struggling. James needed words of affirmation, like, you're amazing, or I'm so proud of you. Ryan thought actions, like doing the dishes, were enough. It wasn't until they sat down and really talked that they figured it out. Now, they're thriving. Well, okay. Here's a point in the segment where I'm going to be a little extra. And because I like poetry, I'm going to give y'all a little poetry break right here and give y'all a line. Khalil Gibran in The Prophet said, "Let there be spaces in your togetherness." Woo! That's your reminder that love doesn't mean losing yourself. It's a beautiful reminder that healthy love is about growing together while keeping and respecting individuality. Love that. Now, let's take a look at some real life stories from couples who I've seen who have faced emotional challenges and learned valuable lessons. Again, reminder that this is a blend of stories from my couples, right? Not just one particular couple. And these stories will give you a window into how others are navigating emotional needs, and hopefully you'll see reflections of your own experiences through the blend of these. First up, let's say we have Mark and Lisa, a couple who are still in the early stages of dating. They're navigating trust and safety, which are fundamental emotional needs. Lisa recently had a rough breakup before meeting Mark, and her past relationship left her with a sense of insecurity. Mark, on the other hand, has always been secure in his relationships, but he didn't understand how much Lisa's past was affecting her emotional needs. After a few months of dating, Lisa started withdrawing and pulling away emotionally, making Mark feel frustrated and confused. But Mark didn't give up on her. Instead, he asked the right questions. He sat down with Lisa and said, "I want to understand you better. I know you've been hurt before, and I want to make sure you feel safe with me." Woo! Everybody give a hand clap to Mark. Because this simple, empathetic conversation helped Lisa open up about her fears, and Mark reassured her that he was there for her. It was through understanding each other's emotional needs and vulnerabilities that their connection grew deeper. Amazing, right? All right, I'm gonna give y'all another couple. Let's call them Jenny and Steve. Jenny and Steve are a married couple who had been together for over 10 years. They had become so distracted by the hustle of life, work, kids, family, that they had completely lost touch with each other's emotional needs. Their marriage had become more about logistics than connection. But one day, Steve came home from work and noticed how distant Jenny had become. He realized they hadn't had a real conversation in weeks. So he took a chance and said, "I miss you. I miss the way we used to connect." Ooh, Jenny broke down, y'all. And guess what? She admitted that she had been feeling neglected. She needed more affection and attention. And Steve had been so focused on everything else that he wasn't seeing her emotional needs. This realization sparked a conversation where they both expressed their feelings, and they made a conscious decision to prioritize their relationship. Now, they have weekly date nights to reconnect and rekindle their emotional bond. Okay, I think I'm gonna give y'all one more. Finally, let's say we have a beautiful story from or by Ryan and Kai, an LGBTQ couple who are navigating the balance between individual growth and shared emotional needs. Ryan and Kai had been in a relationship for 3 years, but they realized they were growing in different directions emotionally. Ryan wanted to focus on his career, while Kai was craving more connection and emotional intimacy. At first, it seemed like they were drifting apart, but instead of ignoring their needs, they decided to have an honest conversation. They each shared what they wanted out of the relationship, but also what they needed individually to feel supported. They found a balance by creating space for personal growth while also making sure to nurture their emotional connection. Ryan made more effort to show affection, while Kai gave Ryan the space he needed to focus on his career goal. This compromise and understanding allowed them to continue growing together while honoring their emotional needs. These couples faced a lot in their relationships, but as you can see, by them coming together, talking things out, being intentional, making each other a priority, they achieved so much in such a short time just by doing those things. The key takeaway from these stories is that communication is everything. Whether you're in a new relationship, a long-term commitment, or navigating the unique dynamics of an LGBTQ plus relationship, Understanding each other's emotional needs is essential. Take the time to listen, validate, and adjust your behaviors to meet those needs. And don't be afraid to have difficult conversations. They are the building blocks of lasting love. Now, let's dive into some expert advice and tackle a few conversational questions about emotional needs and relationships. We've all heard from relationship experts like Esther Perel and Dr. Sue Johnson, and their insights can be game changers, if you didn't know. Esther Perel talks a lot about how modern relationships are often at odds with the emotional needs that have been ingrained in us by our culture. She believes that relationships are expected to fulfill everything, from passion to companionship to personal growth. She asks, can we expect one person to meet all of our emotional needs? And her answer, no, we can't. She argues that expecting one person to be everything is unrealistic and can create undue pressure in a relationship. Dr. Sue Johnson, on the other hand, focuses on the importance of emotional responsiveness in relationships. She's a huge advocate of emotionally focused therapy, one of my favorite techniques to use with my couples. And her research shows that when partners are emotionally responsive to each other, they can create a safe emotional bond. I hope y'all heard that. Now let's tackle a couple of controversial questions. Should emotional needs take precedence over personal growth? Some people believe that if you focus too much on your partner's needs, you'll lose your own sense of self. But here's the thing. Personal growth and emotional connection don't have to be mutually exclusive. Again, it's about balance. So yes, you should grow as an individual, but you should also be growing together in the relationship. And what about love languages? Are they culturally biased? Some argue that love languages like physical touch, acts of service, and words of affirmation are rooted in Western ideals and may not resonate with people from different cultural backgrounds. This is a valid point, y'all. Love languages might need to be adapted to fit the unique context of your relationship, taking cultural and personal experiences into account. Now, I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on these controversial topics? Should emotional needs always come first? Are love languages too culturally biased? Head over to our social media pages and let's get the conversation started. Or put your comments in the comment section in this episode. All right, couples, let's land this plane. Emotional needs. Yes, emotional needs. They're the foundation of any healthy relationship. And the secret to meeting them, communication, self-awareness, and a little patience. Understanding emotional needs is a journey, not a destination. This week, I challenge you all to try one of the strategies we talked about in today's episode. Whether it's active listening, journaling, or asking better questions. Small steps to big changes. Trust me, your relationship will thank you. I want to thank you all for joining us today on Hearts Flying from Hearts Distractions. I hope you now have a deeper understanding of your own emotional needs, as well as your partner's. Remember, love is an ongoing journey of connection, communication, and mutual growth. But before we go, don't forget, subscribe to Hearts Flying from Hearts Distractions on YouTube. Visit us at www.aliciasdistractions.com. Follow me on social media on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook through Alicia's Distractions. Let's keep this conversation going because love is too beautiful and too messy to navigate alone. Until next time, take care of each other and remember, love is a beautiful mess and we're all learning how to navigate it together.